with us, but he's at a bed cell site location. And so he asked me to chair the meeting for him in case his cell phone connection might fade in and out. And on a different note, happy anniversary, Chairman Jones, if you can hear us. All
Thank
right.
you very much, Councilman Burke, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to chair the meeting.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. So let's begin at the gavel. Legislative day number 14 will now come to order. Please pause for a moment of silent meditation. I will now call upon Councilman David Marks, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Councilman Marks.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Is there a motion to approve the journal for the meeting of July 6, 2022?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Journal's approved. Enrollment of bills. Bills 41-22 and 47-22 were passed by the council, signed by the executive, and are hereby enrolled. Mr. Secretary, we now read all bills for introduction, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First is Bill 5322, Current Expense Budget, Baltimore County Department of Corrections, Medication Assisted Treatment in Detention Act Implementation Project. Bill 54-22, Current Expense Budget, Federal U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. Bill 55-22, County Executive Compensation. Bill 56-22, sponsored by Councilman Jones, County Council Compensation and Retirement Benefits. Bill 57-22, sponsored by Councilwoman Bevins, Chesapeake Bay Critical Areas Protection Water Dependent Facilities Exemption. Bill 58-22, sponsored by Councilman Mark, University-Based Retirement Community. And Bill 59-22, sponsored by Councilwoman Bevins, Veterans Housing and Treatment Campuses. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. First bill, please.
First bill for final reading and vote, Mr. Chairman, is Bill 48-22, Current Expense Budget, Continuum of Care.
And I believe we have Mr. Terry Hickey here to testify.
Good afternoon, Councilman, Council Chair, members of the Council. The administration is again requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds totaling $29,666 for the Continuum of Care Gifts and Grants Fund. These are going to be used to provide ongoing rental assistance and support to 11 formerly homeless individuals and families through the end of the grant period, which is August 30th, 2022. As I noted at the work session, HUD originally allocated these funds to a private nonprofit organization that is no longer able to perform the services under its existing agreement. This is County DHCD agreeing to take over the commitment through the end of the grant program to make sure these families continue to have their rent paid.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call a roll on Bill 48-22.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
Bill 48-22 is passed. Mr. Secretary, next bill, please.
Next bill, Mr. Chairman, is Bill 49-22, Current Expense Budget, State Department of Health and Community Development.
All right.
Mr. Hickey, yep, Terry Hickey as well.
I'll keep going. This is another supplemental appropriation request. In this case, we're requesting supplemental appropriation for federal ERA2 funds totaling $6 million. This is for DHCD's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. These funds were originally directed to the state of Maryland from the U.S. Treasury and are being subgranted to Baltimore County as additional rental assistance funds, in part as acknowledgement of the continuing need, but also Baltimore County's track record for efficiently getting this money out the door in a timely manner. These funds, like the others that you're all familiar with, will be used primarily for rental and utility assistance for eligible county households. And just an additional note, $6 million in this appropriation is coming directly to the county to go out through our EPP program. An additional $11.5 million from the state will be going directly to the United Way of Central Maryland for our accompanying STEP program, also to benefit Baltimore County residents.
Any questions or comments from the members? Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 49-22.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
Bill 49-22 is passed. Mr. Secretary, next bill, please.
Next is Bill 50-22, Opioid Abatement Fund.
And we have Lawrence Richardson here to testify.
Yes, good evening, members of the council. The administration is seeking approval to create a non-lapsing opioid abatement fund. The creation of this fund is mandated in the settlement agreement of the National Prescription Opiate litigation from July of 2021. The purpose of the fund is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of county residents and communities by providing for the care, treatment, and other programs designed to address the misuse and abuse of opioid products, treat or mitigate opioid use or related disorders, or mitigate other alleged effects, including those injured as a result of the opioid epidemic. The fund may be used to participate with other government agencies or private sector institutions to leverage funding for special projects. The Director of Health and Human Services and the Director of Budget and Finance shall administer the fund according to accepted principles of sound accounting and fiscal management, and shall maintain records in accordance with general accepted accounting principles in conformity with the requirements of the settlement agreement. The Director of Health and Human Services or his designee shall provide each member of the County Council with an annual report on or before December 31st that outlines the financial assistance that has been provided under this title.
And Mr. Secretary, I understand there's one amendment to Bill 50-22.
There is, Mr. Chairman. It is actually, as Mr. Richardson just alluded to, that on or before the end of the year, December 31, the Director of Health and Human Services or the Director's designee shall submit to the Council an annual report outlining for that year the distributions to the county under the agreement, the settlement agreement, and any other funding designated and provided by the county, as well as an accounting of how the funds have been allocated and spent during that year.
All right, and is there a motion to approve the amendment to Bill 50-22?
So moved. Second.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on the amendment to the bill.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark.
Aye.
The amendment passes. Are there any questions or comments from the members on the bill as amended? All right, is there a motion to approve Bill 50-22 as amended?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 50-22 as amended.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
Bill 50-22 as amended is passed. Mr. Secretary, next bill, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Bill 51-22, sponsored by Council Members Katz and Quirk, Development Review and Approval Process Limited Exemption.
And if it's okay with Councilman Katz, why don't we do the amendments first, and then we'll open up for questions or comments, if that's okay?
fine with me.
All right, Mr. Secretary, please read the amendments to Bill 51-22.
There are two sets of amendments, Mr. Chairman. The first set is offered by the administration and Mr. Katz. And this amendment or set of amendments would alter mainly some technical terms. It would clarify that the meeting in question that is the subject of the bill shall be an open meeting, that the applicability of the posting of notice requirements would apply only to commercial or industrial development projects under subsections A1 Roman numeral 6 or B8 of the limited exemption section. There would also be an amendment that would state that the meeting in question, the open meeting, would take place no earlier than 30 days, and then the amendment would state nor later than 60 days after receipt of the application. And then finally, there's an amendment at the end of the bill that merely clarifies the appellate process that would be in accordance with section 32.3.401 of the code. And that is the first set of amendments here, Mr. Chairman.
So that's the first set of amendments, and there's another set of amendments after that?
There's one more amendment that Mr. Patch is offering on his own.
Okay, so we'll vote on two different sets of amendments.
Yes, sir.
All right, if that's okay with Councilman Couch, we'll do that. Okay, so this first set of amendments that you just read, is there a motion to approve the amendments that you just read to Bill 51-22?
So moved.
And I'll second it. So it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on the first set of amendments to Bill 51-22.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Mark.
Aye.
First set of amendments pass. Mr. Secretary, could you read the second set of amendments, please?
The amendment being offered by Councilman Katz would state that if the property that is the subject of the development, if the property that is the subject of the commercial or industrial development is adjacent to or within 200 feet of a residentially zoned or RO zone property, the director may, in their discretion, require that a community input meeting be held prior to acceptance of the application for limited exemption.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Couch?
Yeah, thank you very much. This amendment really is prompted by two situations that occurred in my district that I believe that if the neighboring communities had known about both of these situations, in one case, the county would have saved about $1.4 million. And in the other case, it wouldn't be what's happening with people being angry because they feel as if they've been cut out of the process wouldn't be occurring. Let me tell you, the first situation deals with a Royal Farms store that I gave the zoning for near the Heva Plaza on York Road. I guess most of you know where that is. It's near the Fire Museum on York Road. Well, anyhow, I gave approval for a Royal Farms. I did not give approval for gasoline for a couple reasons. The prime reason is that this station was one block from a major intersection. And in my opinion, and the opinion of the community, if it was a very busy gasoline station, which I'm sure it would be, it would cause traffic problems. So the developer proposed that 13 electric charging stations be installed at this station. And the developer asked that this particular proposal be exempted from the development process, which it was. Now, when you take a look at the zoning of this property, you'll see there's no mention of electric charging stations. So, you know, what they decided is that they wanted to put 13 of these stations at this particular facility. The community didn't know about it. The community had no opportunity to give their input. I mean, I'm not against electric charging stations. I'm sure most of you are not. I think 13 is a bit much. And the traffic issues that I had a problem with are, you know, with 13 lanes is going to be a problem. The second issue deals with the animal shelter, which there was absolutely no public input from the community. And if you remember, the county ended up at my urging passing legislation that necessitated the county building a $1.4 million sound barrier so that the neighboring community wouldn't hear the barking dogs. Now, if there had been public input sessions, if the community had known about this project, I'm certain that the location of the dog runs would have been changed at a lot less cost to the other side of the building, which you know wouldn't have cost any more money when it was being built, and the county could have avoided building a $1.4 million sound barrier. So, you know, my view is that the public has the right to know about these proposals. But more importantly, I've always found that in my 48 years that that people, of course, are very educated. They have various jobs. They have skills in areas that I don't know anything about nursing. I don't know anything about engineering, but you know, there's always people in the community that know these things, and I've found their input over the years to be extremely valuable. So, in order to have really a smoother process, uh, what I'm suggesting here that, of course, this would be in both the situations I described. There would have been a community input meeting held, and the community would have found out about the dog runs and maybe could have suggested they be put in another location so that the county wouldn't end up building this sound barrier. And also with these 13 charging lanes, that the community would have had input into this, since electric charging stations aren't even mentioned in the county code. It's not in the county code. So, you know, I think when, especially in this case, when it's not even mentioned in the county code, that citizens should have the right to give their comments. And, you know, to be honest with you, I think the public has a right to know everything anyhow. And we would all benefit from public knowledge on all kinds of subjects. So, so anyhow, that's what the amendment does, and it's supported, of course, by community associations, and so that's it.
All right, thank you, thank you, Councilman Catch. Before we call for the vote on the second set of amendments, is there any questions or any comments from the council? Any members have any? Councilwoman Bevins?
Thank you, Councilman Quirk. Yeah, I'm trying to understand the purpose of this amendment because are we talking about projects that are already by right you want community input meetings for?
No, these are when they go through the process. Well, in the situation with the Royal Farms uh, store,
Mhm.
uh, yes, that is by right. But the situation with the electric charging stations is not mentioned in the zoning law at all.
Well,
And
sometimes you can certainly ask myself or Councilman Crandall. I know has had this experience. You know, the county code was written so long ago, and sometimes we need to add things.
yeah,
And I guess with solar and the charging of electric cars, maybe that's something that you or someone else on the council should have added to the code.
well,
Uh,
I had with the electric charging stations, I had a resolution in that would have required a study and recommendations as to, where it should go in the code, the definition, et cetera. But then
mhm.
the administration informed me that they are in the process of doing the same thing. And since they're doing the same thing, they didn't want to double up on the efforts. And, I have, and I think I would be angry if I were a resident of a community that's concerned about traffic issues and out of the clear blue sky, uh, they want to put in 13 electric charging lanes, and the people in the area didn't even know about it,
Well,
had
Council,
no idea.
I don't, I guess I'm missing something. I don't understand why anyone would care who's plugging their car in for a limited amount of time. Obviously, they're already going to the Royal Farm store for something. And how does that cause a traffic issue? And
Well, you have, I'm
I
sorry.
doubt you would ever see 13 cars lined up at the Royal Farms all charging at the same time,
Well, it's 13 separate lanes.
right? Hmm.
So it's possible to have 13 cars being charged up at the same time and
Hmm.
then leaving. So, it's just the idea that the community they didn't know about it. They have no say. It's been approved for a limited exemption. So, I mean, that's it. And
Councilman Catch, is that under appeal right now?
It's before the Board of Appeals, yes. And this
Sure.
will be the first opportunity they have
So
to
they are part.
express their, but this could have been all avoided if they'd known about it in the first place. And I think Royal Farms probably would have been willing to reduce the number of lanes to resolve this issue, this concern about traffic congestion and traffic safety
But
in
didn't the
their,
community show up at the DRC? Did that
uh,
community show up at the DRC?
well, they didn't know about it.
They didn't know about it.
No,
Don't
no,
they subscribe to the Jeffersonian?
no.
I'm sorry.
And I've seen these parking things before. I've never seen them as lanes. I've just seen them as parking spots. Is this different than all the other ones I've seen?
It's no, they're parking spots, as you said, but besides the business of Royal Farms, you would then add these 13 parking places. Look, I don't have, it's just my concern is the public has been kept in the dark until, and they had no ability to give their input before the DRC or anything. And it's hard. I just think people should have information and be able to express their views. And again, I think that if this had been the case, I believe that Royal Farms would have been willing just to reduce the number of charging lanes. And of course, what they're really concerned, another thing they're concerned about is, well, I'm sure that, and maybe I'm wrong, in 2 years, I'm sure that during the CZMP process, the owner of Royal Farms may ask me for the ability to sell gasoline. But we already have 13, yeah, they are lanes. They're not parking places, come to think of it. You know, we have 13 lanes, and why not put gasoline with the electric charging? Because that's what's happening. There's a lot that when you see the electric charging at a gas station, they're together in essence. And that's the concern.
Well, you would have control over that because
Yeah,
that
true. Absolutely.
the issue, adding an AC.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just so I understand this correctly, so every business within 200 feet, and I'm going to say almost every business is within 200 feet of the corridor, you're saying should have a community input meeting. So I guess I would like to ask, is Mr.
Commercial.
Okay, commercial, that's a business. That's a business.
Right. Oh, I just didn't hear
Yeah.
what you said.
And
Okay.
business, I'm going to say most of them are within 200 feet. That would be every single one. So I'm just wondering how PIA feels about that and the overwhelming of that agency of having a meeting on every single change that every single business owner can do by right. Because then what makes them different than somebody that can't do anything by right? I mean, they go through one system, and now you're asking a business that's there by right to go through the same process that the other business has to go through. That doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, it just, well, of course, uh, it can still, the business can still have their petition to not go through the development process approved. It's just
Mhm.
a situation where the public will know about it, they can comment on it, and then when the final decision is made by the DRC, they could decide that this particular project does qualify and would go through without the requirements that a normal development would go through. This
Okay.
this is it you know, I just think people have a right to know what's going on near them. And, you know, as I said, I think so many people really understand these situations and can suggest things or do suggest things that make a lot of sense because they live there after all. I mean, they do live.
You kind of did make it sound like your people were smarter than the rest of the district. I didn't.
No. Oh, no. I meant in
They
general.
understand.
Oh, you mean my
Your
constituents?
constituents, yeah.
Well, they are bright. That's for sure. They elected me. No, I'm
So
kidding.
are mine.
I'm only kidding.
Is Mr. Gutwall on? Director Gutwall?
That's Councilwoman Bevins. He is on as an attendee.
Yeah. Mr. Gutwall, do you have an opinion on this, on how this would affect PIA?
It would be a significant increase in the number of CIMs, Councilwoman. Yes.
Right.
That would add a significant number of increase because of the number of minor developments within, and remember, this is minor developments, which is not very well defined in our code. But as Mr. Bostwick and I discussed, we probably need to work on that as well as the next step. But it would include, a number of additional CIMs for the department. Yeah.
And do you have the staff to do that? And could you do that in a timely manner?
Well, we're working on it. We're working on getting more increased staff. Yes, but
Okay. Well, this is the first I'm seeing this amendment, so that's why I have so many questions. I'm sorry to ask so many questions, Wade. I'm just curious. I think this sounds more than just electric charging stations because that kind of sounds a little off to me. I've seen charging stations. I don't know how that affects anyone that even lives anywhere near the convenience store, much less miles away. I just don't know. People go and they plug in for a little while, and they go in, they get their coffee, their cigarettes, or lotteries, or donut, whatever they're getting, and they come out and uncharged.
These are the superchargers.
Right? They charge fast.
Well,
They-
yeah, they charge fairly fast. I did look it up, but I don't really remember how long that it could last. And,
Right.
I just don't remember.
I just don't know how, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but since it's something new and hasn't even happened yet, I just don't know how you or your community or anyone in the county could anticipate what charging stations do to traffic or communities or businesses. I've been in different areas of Maryland that have them. I never see more than one or two hooked up, and they're usually the people that work there or work close by, who don't have a charging station at their work, and they charge there and walk to work, something like that. I just can't imagine 13 cars all charging at the same time and what that actually does for traffic. I guess somebody would have to do a study on that to convince me of that. But yeah, I just think, and no disrespect to PIA, but I know what it takes for me to get code enforcement issues back. I know what it takes me to get other issues back. And I just, I can't see putting any more on that agency's plate just because you feel like everybody needs to know. At some point, you were elected to make decisions for your constituents, not for them to have a say in everything, but for you to make those decisions. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I first want to thank Mr. Gutwald and his department for all the cooperation and the administration as well with crafting this bill and the amendments. They are interested in open and transparent government. I really feel that people have a right to know what is proposed to be near them or what's proposed in general.
Well, I do too, if it's gonna affect their quality of life. I
Well,
ask,
and it might, and as I said, they could have the input and, say, well, we think it's going to increase traffic. It's going to be a safety problem. And then the people who makes the final decisions may disagree and pass it on. So it just goes through the process. So,
at the end,
we have one extra meeting is what we're talking about. And as I said, it might be a situation where, Royal Farms hearing constituents, and I thought, well, we'll try 6 lanes at first or 5 lanes, something like that. I mean, I don't, I just don't think that this is necessarily a big deal. Now, with the animal shelter, I think that is a big deal because we had the taxpayer spending $1.4 million for a sound barrier.
did the state pay that?
300,000 the state put in, and the county put in $1.1 million to build this sound barrier. And if they had built the animal shelter with the runs on the other side of the building, they wouldn't need the sound barrier. So, and I'm certain, pretty sure that someone would have said, well, why don't you just put the dog runs on the other side, so that because it's not going to affect the neighbors like this did. You remember the tapes?
I
Remember the tapes and everything? Yeah.
Mhm.
Councilwoman Bevins, any other questions? I know most of the members have questions on this
sorry.
one. Are you okay?
Yeah, this is just the first time seeing this, so I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
All right, Councilman Patoka?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think Councilman Catch brings up some valid points here, and he's got me thinking about our processes. In fact, when you were talking about the charging stations, I was wondering, well, do we need an AS overlay to allow for charging stations? And from what Councilwoman Bevin says, the zoning code doesn't address charging stations.
Mhm.
And so I think it almost lends itself to a larger question about the zoning code. And, you know, as we hopefully are reaching a post-pandemic world, we have to, I think we're going to have to come to a time where we have to unpack our zoning code, because the basic framework of our zoning code, and not just Baltimore County, but zoning codes and jurisdictions across the country, the basic framework is what based on retail that's quite different than it is today.
True.
Based on office space that's quite different than it is today. And so I think that, and with electric cars are another example of how the world is changing, but our zoning, the framework of our zoning code remains the same. And we could tweak it with an adjustment here or there. But I think as we move forward, there will come a time where we need to really take a deep dive into all the elements of a strong zoning code. Having said that, as it relates to Councilman Catch's comments, I think as we try to move towards the maximum level of transparency, that's going to involve communities. And I know that PAI does an outstanding job. Pete's been a great director. And as such, we as the legislative leadership, and we have representatives from the executive office, the CAO, the budget director, that we're going to have to start to place our resources where our priorities are. And if our priorities are to be transparent, then we'll have to hire professionals that are able to administer community input meetings, because the budget that we will approve will be an articulation of what our public policy is. And if our public policy is transparency, then we've got to put the personnel in place to increase transparency. So I think that the more the public is engaged in what we do to improve Baltimore County and our respective districts, I think the better product we'll have in our respective commercial areas and our respective neighborhoods and our respective districts. So I think it's a thoughtful amendment. And I think it raises a lot of questions about our future and how we view the zoning code. And especially as we approach the 2023 to 24 CZMP. You know, that might put a time element towards this unpacking and review of the zoning code. So those are just some general thoughts that I'd like to share, but I think conceptually it sounds like we're moving in the right direction.
Chairman Jones?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Quirk. My issue with the amendment is basically we were all here for the animal shelter that the county had, and I, as well as everyone else, supported the idea of a wall, and we were fortunate enough to get some funds from the state to help build the wall. And I understand from afar what's going on with the rural farms and the charging stations. And the community is again appealing that. My issue is those are examples, but what we're not looking at is 99% of the time, these things are by right. 99% of the time, these are issues that are of a small and technical nature. And when I see business people telling me that it's taking them an exorbitant amount of time to get a permit approved, and while they're sitting around waiting, that's tax dollars we don't get. That's jobs where people are not working. I'm not so sure I want to put in a barrier to 99% of the cases just because we had two anomalies. and I guess that's where I sort of stand on the issue. Most of these issues are very technical in nature and very small, and we're talking about places that are by right. And if I'm wrong, Pete, you can sort of let me know. Thank you.
Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. I am torn on this amendment. I really see some valid points on all sides. The first concern I have is I was at the office all day today. Last I saw on this bill was at 10:01 a.m. Can I ask Mr. Bostwick or Mr. Phillips, was this amendment addressed anywhere in that email from 10:01 a.m.? Okay, so we're debating an issue of transparency and good government, and we have a last minute amendment. I mean, I was at the office all day today. You two know I was there. I never saw this. I'm sure my colleagues didn't. And we're always getting called on that
By Councilman Catch.
by a lot of people, and it concerns me because this is a substantial change to the development regulations. On the other hand, looking at the merit of the amendment, I am intrigued by the words "at the discretion of." So, Mr. Bostwick or Mr. Phillips, can you read that part of the amendment? Can you guys read the whole amendment again?
Yes, Mr. Marks. The amendment would state exactly, if the property that is the subject of the development is adjacent to or within 200 feet of a residentially zoned or RO zoned property, the director may, in their discretion, require that a community input meeting be held in accordance with section 32-4-217 of this code prior to acceptance of the application for a limited exemption. That is the amendment exactly. The reference to the code is the community input meeting section.
So the operative words are "at the discretion of," correct?
The director may, in their discretion, require.
Yeah, may at their discretion require. Does the administration have any opinion on this amendment? I mean, how much more of a burden does this create?
Just another meeting.
Well, when, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
yeah, first of all, today I finally called at 20 of 6 because I had talked to Mr. Bostwick, I think last Thursday, about this amendment, but I was really torn. And I thought, well, maybe a compromise would be to give the, in this case, Mr. Gutwald, the ability to either grant the CIM or not. And, I really believe that in the situation with the Royal Farms, that since charging stations are not in our zoning law at all, that he would grant a CIM. And in other cases that are minor, I'm sure he wouldn't. So I was debating back and forth whether or not to leave it at the discretion, in this case, of Mr. Gutwald, and I apologize for being late, but it was, a situation where it's just like, it was just trying to figure out what I thought was right. And so that's the reason it's late. And we went through a lot of trouble to get the administration and et cetera to agree on the first set of amendments. It took quite a bit of time, but again, I thank the administration and Mr. Gutwald, et cetera, for their cooperation. And I will say that the administration is very interested in openness and transparency. There's no doubt about that. And, I don't want to cause any unnecessary work for the county, which is why I decided to go with the discretion of. So, yeah, I apologize for being late, but it's totally my fault because I'm, you know how it goes sometimes. You want to, well, is this the way to go or is that the way to go? So, and I figure, well, you know, if it doesn't work a year from now, we can correct it if the discretion doesn't work. So that was my thinking there.
No, I mean, Councilman Wade, you've always been very consistent, and you try to do the best for your constituents, and I always appreciated that about you. I'm trying to see what the impact will be of giving the discretion to the director. I mean, there's this division in the county charter between the executive and the legislative branches. Does the council member, with every instance of this, pressure the permits director to do something? And overall, what is the workload like? What's the workload that's created? And that's why I was really interested in the administration's perspective. What does this do to the director of PAI?
Ms. Rogers has her hand up. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to say it's always something that we like to have the ability to analyze the workload impact, because any new thing that's added to the requirements of a department does have an impact. And unfortunately, I can't say that for this amendment, we've had a chance to do that. And knowing how we are struggling to get things done, is to me, we're operating in the blind on this proposed amendment, because we have not had that opportunity to analyze what kind of impact it would be. Just looking at the sheer numbers and doing back of the envelope, it's going to have an impact.
Which is why I made it discretionary.
Well, even with discretion, Councilmember Catch, I must say that it still puts us in a precarious situation of knowing whether we have the opportunity, have the ability to do things based on the need to have it done, and then the decision making of who do you do it for, who don't you do it for. I mean, I just feel like we haven't had the opportunity to do the appropriate analysis.
Does Mr. Gutwald have any additional comments as well? Mr. Gutwald, do you have any other thoughts on this? Or, I mean, this would definitely be falling a lot into your lap. So I just wanted to see if you had any other thoughts as well. You there? Is he there? Chris, is Mr. Gutwald still there? Or is he?
He's still on.
I ran for the hills.
Yes, let me make him a panelist that way.
Chairman Quirk, while we're waiting,
Yes.
could I add, the bill is a good bill in and of itself and I congratulate Councilman Katz for introducing the bill. The bill provides notification to the community, which is a good thing. I guess my concern is now we're going to a place where we can literally, clog up the works in terms of not just notification, but literally causing a hearing for every little thing. And believe me when I tell you, knowing what I know about projects, sometimes it's not just the community that is upset about a project. Sometimes it is competitors. Sometimes it is people that just want to clog up the works for no other reason than to hold somebody up. So it's not all, this tool will not be used by just the community members. It could be used by an awful lot of people for an awful lot of reasons, and it can have some very serious effect on our ability to process development applications. And again, we're talking about places that are by right. We have already gone through the process and assigned the appropriate zoning.
Right.
And now we're adding an additional step that could, number one, to the administrative officer's point, Ms. Rogers, it puts the burden then on the director of PAI to decide when does he not do this. How many citizens does it take? 1, 2, 3? Does it even take a citizen? Does it take a competitor? I don't know, but it's something that probably really needs to be studied before we do it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more point?
Yes, Councilman Marks.
And I don't mean this line of questioning is disparaging Councilman Catch in any way. I think his heart is in the right place. But we've had Inspector General investigations, and I thought that the outcome of those investigations was to try to establish very clear, bright lines as to what the director of PAI can be doing. In other words, it seems like the outcome of those investigations is to almost take away that discretion and set in standards. This is a tough one, and I see both sides of this. And I, again, am very concerned about kind of the line between the executive and the legislative branches and the overall manpower burden that this creates on that office.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. I know we have Pete Gottwald who's queued up now, and Director Gottwald, perhaps you can talk to us a little bit about the scope of, like, the impact or scope of this, and what some of your thoughts are, since you'll be right on the firing line, so to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I was before, so many of you said a lot of the things that, I was thinking Madam AO kind of hit the nail on the head. This will be an additional workload. Remember, the DRC, or the development review process, is to determine which direction it should go. So I'm already making those decisions, if you will, or not, as to whether it goes full process or whether it goes limited exemption. Even though they ask for a limited exemption, they don't always get it. That doesn't give them the opportunity to do that. I will tell you, if in my, the way I operate, I would say whether it said discretion or not, I'm going to go conservative and make them go hold the CIM in most cases, because I can't, as Councilman Jones mentioned, I can't make that. A lot of times I don't know what the community's aspect is, or where they're sitting with this, or whether they care for it or not. And a lot of these things, when we talk about minor development for commercial, it ranges from this rural farm store to what I was just dealing with. One was just adding a refrigerator so they could store their crabs, and they were putting addition to the back end of their little restaurant. And to me, we're talking about this internally. When this bill passes, they're going to have to post, they're going to have to do all these kinds of things, because that's a minor development. That's considered minor commercial development. So it will be addition. If you're adding CIMs to this, it'll be an additional time. We're, with the posting requirements, that would be an additional up to 3-4 additional weeks already, or 2 weeks, I should say, depending upon when they came in and when we have our DSC meeting scheduled. So this will be an additional workload. As Madam AO said, I don't know to the extent. I'd love to take some time and think about it, because how many are within 200 feet of residential? I mean, you're talking about almost all of your major arteries, going out through the county. So those are my additional thoughts. Definitely an additional workload, and I am concerned about, the discretion. I'm not a big fan of giving me discretion. I like clarity. Give me specifically yes or no. What's the path to go? And I'll just reiterate, part of the process with the DRC is to say, okay, what is the impact of this thing? Should it go full process, or should it go limited exemption? And which avenues they should take. And just because they ask for it doesn't mean they're going to get it. So.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Gottwald, and that was really helpful to me as well, because Councilman Marks had made a good point about the discretion maybe being control and trying to filter a lot of the easy things to push through, and only focus on the more challenging ones. But what I heard Mr. Gottwald say is he would probably throw most of these into community input, which definitely prolongs the process. And many of these processes are fairly easy and perfunctory. Councilman Catch, I guess, or question for you, Councilman Catch. Do do you want us to vote on this amendment, or do you want to pull it and we can look at it more and maybe revisit it? I just want to kind of get your feeling after everything we heard tonight. I want to kind of see where you're at.
Yeah, I think there are very good points made tonight. I really do. I, of course, wish that the Royal Farms proposal had not been approved for the limited exemption process, because the fact that the electric charging stations aren't even mentioned in the code is a problem. I think what I will do is introduce legislation at a later time in regard to the CIM requirement. When Director Gutwald mentioned about refrigerators on the back of a business, I'm thinking, well, certainly, you wouldn't hold a CIM for that. But, in the case of Royal Farms, I would hope he didn't, but I wish that he had. I think he should have. It's no slight meant, because I think he does a very good job. But I think what I'll do is take another look at this. And, it's one that I just went back and forth in my mind. And again, I just really, we want to be as open and transparent as possible. And again, I know that the public input, it can be and is very valuable. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Katz. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Councilman Campbell?
maybe I'm anticipating your question, Mr. Chairman. But Councilman Cash, does that mean that you're withdrawing this Second Amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your thought process on that. And since I'm the last member, I think, here to chime in, and I've heard all sides of this, I just wanted to put on record my thoughts on this in that the limited exemption process exists for a reason. It's worked fairly well throughout throughout Baltimore County, and certainly in my term, my 2 terms on the council. It has been used successfully for a number of projects, a majority of projects that have gone into the development of the Trade Point Atlantic project in my district. In fact, in 2015, this council passed legislation that identified and made it a certainty that the limited exemption process would be the process used by which Trade Point Atlantic could tell potential tenants that this is the development process in Baltimore County. And when we were facing that bill, there was some concern among residents, a concern of other council members, that this would eliminate public input into the whole process. And we learned through that debate, or that discussion, that the limited exemption process does indeed not exclude community input. There is an allowance for an appellate process. What the original bill, unamended bill that Councilman Katch has put forth, I think the spirit of that bill is in the right place, in that it would require additional posting, and I believe some additional online resources applied to that posting. Am I correct, Councilman Katch?
Yes.
So, I think that the spirit of that original legislation, I think is well-intentioned, and something that I had planned to support. But like some of the other members of the council tonight, I was
a little blindsided by the last minute amendment that then we would include this discretionary piece of PAI to include community input meetings on certain issues. And I think that it does deserve some more examination. But I also think that, as I've said already, that the limited exemption process it has existed for a long time with success, with communities being made aware through their own mechanisms, and going through at various times, going through the appellate process should they disagree with the decision of the DRC. So the intention of Councilman Catch's original bill here is to codify a process and improve it that already exists throughout Baltimore County, but spells out and again improves through additional notification to the community. So I think that Councilman Catch, I do appreciate your willingness to take a step back on not necessarily the First Amendment, which I think we're all okay with, is that the Second Amendment, and have further discussion, further deliberation over it, since we haven't had a lot of time on it, and that it does involve some consequences that we may not be we may not be considering. So I just wanted to weigh in on that, and I'll let yield my time and give it back to the chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. All right, so we have the first set of amendments that was passed. The second set was withdrawn, and Councilman Catch might look at a bill, or we'll study that more. Are there any other questions or comments from the members on this bill? Everybody good?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilman.
on the bill itself, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
All right.
Will do.
So would I, please.
So would I as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion to approve Bill 51-22 as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 51-22 as amended.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Paluca,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Katz.
Aye, and I want to thank the council and certainly thank you for the discussion that just took place. I think that it was very helpful, and again, thank you very much.
And thank you, Councilman Catch, for your leadership and work on this bill. And Bill 51-22 as amended is passed. Mr. Secretary, next bill, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Bill 52-22, sponsored by Councilman Mark, zoning regulations, changeable copy signs.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilman Marks.
I would like to motion that the lifetime of this bill be extended to the next legislative session.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
after this motion passes, I do have a question for Councilman Marks that is very important.
Why don't we do it now before we call the
Sure.
Okay.
Councilman Marks, I've had constituents look, and I've looked over my district above the Erdl, and we don't find any changeable, what do you call it? Changeable, messages, electric messages. We just don't find any. How come, so you do have some in Kingsville?
According to the Kingsville Civic Association, there's a volunteer fire company that has one, and there's a business along Philadelphia Road that has one.
And according to the community associations in northern Baltimore County, they're not allowed. And so this bill is simply clarifying.
Also, that's what we're getting back from the permits department is they think that, I don't want to speak for them, but what I am told is that the current statute is confusing and may not allow them to enforce the prohibition against signs. I think it's good to delay this and to find out the exactly what's going on, quite frankly. And if it needs to be legislation tailored to one area of the county, then we can do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Secretary, there has been a motion and a second to extend. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Cash,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
Bill 52-22 has been extended. All right, now consider all fiscal matters. Extensive testimony was taken in the council's work session on July 26, 2022. The witnesses who testified at the work session are available to restate their testimony if needed. I will now call upon the secretary to read the cover letter for fiscal matters 1 through 13.
Fiscal matter 1 is a contract with Fox Springs Farm LLC, acquisition of a conservation easement. Fiscal matter 2 is a contract with McKinnon, Shelton and Henn LLP for bond counsel legal services. Fiscal matter 3 is a contract with Biblioteca for radio frequency identification products. Fiscal matter 4 is a contract of sale with Leadership Through Athletics Incorporated, acquisition of a parcel. Fiscal matter 5 is 2 contracts for on-call stormwater repair, maintenance, and inspection. Fiscal matter 6 is a contract with Bayland Consultants and Designers for on-call aquatic vegetation and waterway dredging design services. Fiscal matter 7 is 5 contracts for on-call landscape architect and civil engineering services. Fiscal matter 8 is a contract with Legacy Manor LLC for assisted living care. Fiscal matter 9 is 21 contracts for similar gap filling services through the Department of Aging. Fiscal matter 10 is a contract with Duke's Root Control for sanitary sewer pipe treatment. Fiscal matter 11 is 2 contracts for on-call sanitary sewer rehabilitation. Fiscal matter 12 is a contract with RJN Group for sewer and pressurized main assessment services. And fiscal matter 13 is amendment number 2 to a contract with Motorola for support maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And I did want to just make one comment on fiscal matter 4, leadership through athletics. This is just a wonderful example of how the administration is using program open space funding for reimbursement. That's just exceptional. I mean, I felt like years ago, and I think Councilman Marks and many of the council agree that in the past, almost like program open space funding maybe wasn't being utilized to the best of what we could use it for. And boy, this is a great example of really good leadership for aptly named Leadership Through Athletics. And but of course, the Grace family on Lansdowne really has been doing a wonderful job in the community. Lansdowne's an area that really needs this service and this attention for sure. Don Moeller obviously has been working very hard on this one. Brian White and the board, really just a wonderful group of people. And again, acknowledgement to the county exec for his personal leadership on this one, and everybody in the administration who helped make this happen. It's just a great win for the community. So I can't be more grateful or appreciative for this one. Any other questions or comments from the members on any of these fiscal matters?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patoka?
Yes, I'd like to separate out fiscal matter 11 and
Okay, so I got you. So we'll separate out fiscal matter 11. Any other questions or comments from the members?
Fiscal matter 11 is two contracts for on-call sanitary sewer rehabilitation design services.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. Any other questions or comments? All right, so do we have a motion to approve fiscal matters 1 through 13, except for number 11, which we'll do separately? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll move it. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on fiscal matters 1 through 10, and then 12 through 13, please.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins.
Aye.
All right, fiscal matters 1 through 10, 12, and 13 do pass. Let's go back to fiscal matter 11. Any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patoka?
So I just want to disclose to the members and to the public that I have to abstain from this vote. My wife works for one of the two firms being considered in this bill. So I'm going to abstain in the vote
Okay,
and discussion.
thank you, Councilman Patoka. Is there a motion to approve fiscal matter 11 from the council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been a motion second. Mr. Secretary, could you please call the roll for fiscal matter 11, please?
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Abstain.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Fiscal matter 11 passes. We now consider miscellaneous business. Mr. Secretary, first item, please.
Mr. Chairman, whenever a contract over $25,000 is awarded by a process other than formal competitive bid, it is required that a copy of the contract be given to the county council and nature and parties to the contract be announced by the secretary at the next legislative session. There is one such contract on the agenda for this evening. It is a purchase order with Edward G. Rall and Sons for box produce for a grocery drive and go initiative in fiscal 22 in the amount of $691,245. The award total between 7/1/21 and 7/5/22 has been $2.631901 million.
Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Resolution 27-22, sponsored by Councilwoman Bevins. This resolution would authorize the continued review of a proposed planned unit development known as Ridgedale.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Yes, Resolution 2722 would approve the review of a proposed PUD, and it is located in Rosedale. And it would consist of 80 senior apartments and 40 townhomes. They went through 2 community meetings already, and I've worked closely with Mr. Terry Hickey and Mr. Gottwald in planning on this. And the community benefit is, one is interesting. They're both for the fire department, but one is there's an existing building on the property, and they're willing to let the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Department torch it and then take the fire out. So that sounds exciting. That would be for training purposes, of course. And next, it was corrected, Mr. Boswick, for $20,000 to go to the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Department.
We have the amendment to do that.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was just an error.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think this is going to be really nice for Rosedale. As we know, when seniors have to move out of their existing homes, they like to stay in the same area. And we have a very high population of seniors in the Rosedale area that raised their children there and they've retired there, and they would like to give up their yards and make life a little bit easier for themselves. So this would be a very nice opportunity. So I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
And Mr. Secretary, is there one amendment to this resolution?
Yes, sir, Mr. Quirk. The amendment is, as Mrs. Bevins indicated, that it was a minor snafu on my part when this was drafted, and the amendment would clarify that the second component of the capital benefit is the $20,000 donation to the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Company.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the amendment to the resolution 27-22?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on the amendment to resolution 27-22.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Marks.
Aye.
The amendment passes. Are there any questions or comments from the members for Councilwoman Bevins? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 27-22 as amended?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on resolution 27-22 as amended.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Marks,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
Resolution 27-22 as amended is passed.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, Resolution 28-22 has been deferred and will be brought back at the next meeting. Resolution 29-22 was withdrawn prior to the meeting, and that brings us to Resolution 30-22, sponsored by, at the request of the administration, and also sponsored by Council Members Jones, Patoka, Marks, Katz, and Crandall. This is a resolution that would support the approval of grants to the Baltimore County Volunteer Fire Stations as part of the distribution of American Rescue Plan Act funds.
All right, and Mr. Secretary, I also sponsor that, and I know we have Chief Joanne Rund here to testify.
Okay.
And good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Councilman Quirk, Chairman Jones, and other council members. In recognition of the efforts of the Baltimore County Volunteer Fire Companies throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the county executive proposed in January 2022 grants for each of the volunteer fire companies, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds allocation. From $1 million of those grant awards, each companies are allocated based on the number of volunteers that earned 50 LoSAP points in the prior year, which meant they were extremely active during COVID time and responding to emergency needs of the constituents. Each company has affirmed through signed attestations that their use of the funds will abide by the federal and Department of Treasury guidance, including and maintaining the appropriate records and receipts for their expenditures. If the proposed County Council resolution is approved, the Office of Budget and Finance will coordinate payments with each of the volunteer companies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Pacheco?
Thank you. And thank you, Chief Rund. I just want to point out the outstanding work that our volunteer fire companies do throughout the county. They typically go above and beyond during their normal course of work, and after work they go to their volunteer fire companies, and it's a difficult task, and made even more difficult with the pandemic over the past 2 years, 2.5+ years, where I think they've gone above and beyond the level that they were already going above and beyond. So I think it's important that this resolution be passed so that we can expeditiously release these funds to $1 million to the 29 fire companies that do so much for our communities. They're beacons in each of our respective communities, but not only just not just a beacon as a place, but a beacon as the heart and soul of our community as they are out there day and night, volunteers helping to keep us safe. So thank you, Chief Ron. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And special thanks to all of the members of the volunteer fire companies across Baltimore County.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the members? Everybody good?
Chairman,
Yes, Councilman Marks.
just very briefly, I agree with everything that Councilmember Patoka mentioned, and thank him for putting in the resolution. And he is correct, this relationship between career and volunteer fire stations doesn't exist everywhere. And but it's hard to imagine Baltimore County without that partnership. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Anybody else? All right, is there a motion to approve resolution 30-22?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll. What's that? Okay, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on resolution 30-22.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
Resolution 30-22 is passed. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Resolution 31-22, Department of Libraries Authorization for Expenditure of Non-Local Funds.
We have the director here to testify. Good evening. It's good to see you again.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the County Council for having me here tonight. The administration is requesting authorization for the Baltimore County Public Library to expend additional non-local funds totaling $399,000. These funds represent unanticipated Maryland State Library Agency funds totaling $250,000 and various private grants totaling $149,000. Baltimore County Public Library advised that the funds will be used within the general administration program toward the purchase of a new bookmobile that will bring STREAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Math, and school support-based services to underserved communities in Baltimore County and meet children where they are. The bookmobile will assist in breaking down barriers or access barriers and provide the most up-to-date technology available in a welcoming, safe environment to assist with enhancing literacy skills and aiding in school success for school children and improving quality of life for all. The balance of the vehicle cost, which is $299,000, $560, will be funded out of the county's equipment financing program.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. And are there any questions or comments from the members? Is there a motion to approve resolution 31-22?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on resolution 31-22.
Sorry, Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
Resolution 31-22 is passed. Mr. Secretary, next item, please. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is miscellaneous business number 7. This is for the council to consider approval of FY 2023 Arts and Sciences grant.
And we have Mr. Leonard Howard here tonight. Good evening.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of grants totaling $3.586 million to arts, sciences, cultural and tourism events, activities, and programs consistent with the adopted FY 2023 budget. In consultation with the Commission on Arts and Sciences, Baltimore County distributes arts, sciences, cultural, and tourism grants. These grants are critical to ensuring our residents have access to tourism and arts assets and to ensure that our county organizations and assets may continue to thrive. The grants total over $3.5 million, of which $3.1 million are operating grants. The Arts and Sciences Commission has worked diligently to review the applications and make the recommendations that are before you for approval. Our cultural institutions and tourism assets were one of the hardest hit sectors by the pandemic, and these grants provide critical importance to ensuring that these important cultural offerings remain for our residents and continue to provide invaluable programming. Happy to address any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments from the council? All right, is there a motion to approve the grants? I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on these grants.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
We
Mr. Mark.
heard you.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
I think that's everyone, right? The grants are approved. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is the council's consideration of the nomination of Christine DeCourse for reappointment to the Baltimore County Animal Hearing Board.
Any questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve the reappointment?
So moved.
Second.
There's motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on the reappointment.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Secretary and Councilman Quirk, Mr. Course was on early this evening. He had to jump off for another meeting, so I just wanted to let you know that he was on at one point.
Okay, thank you. All right. We got everybody for the appointment, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, Mr. Jones was the last.
Okay, so the reappointment. There we go. Yep.
Yes, he had chimed in, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering. All right, so the reappointment is confirmed, and I'd like to offer congratulations and also our gratitude. Thanks for your service. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next is miscellaneous business number 9, which is the council's consideration of the nomination of Rick Bernstein for reappointment, or I'm sorry, for appointment to the Baltimore County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Yes,
I'd like-
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patuka?
Yes, I just want to say a few words on behalf of Mr. Bernstein. I grew up with him. He's an outstanding individual. He runs First Fruit Farms up in the 3rd Councilmanic District. Growing up, he was always in the smartest classes, always the best athlete. And now I think he's a great appointment for this board, and also just an outstanding individual.
Great. Councilman Katz?
Yeah, I was going to basically say the same thing. And also, it's my honor to move this resolution.
Been a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any other discussion? Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on this appointment.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall.
Aye.
The appointment is confirmed. Congratulations, and we thank you for your service to the county. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is the council's consideration of the nomination of Holly Gilmore for reappointment to the Baltimore County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board.
Any questions or comments from the council? Is there a motion to approve this reappointment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on the reappointment.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Mark,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
The appointment is confirmed. Congratulations and thank you for your service, Ms. Holly Gilmore. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is the council's consideration of the nomination of Mr. Stephen Meyer to be the chair of the Baltimore County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the appointment?
I'll move it.
Second,
There's been a motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll on this appointment.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Katz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
The appointment is confirmed. Congratulations and thank you to the chair coming in, Stephen Meyer. Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Resolution 32-22. This is a resolution through the Department of Libraries for the authorization for the expenditure of non-local funds. You just heard one that you approved. This is a different one for introduction only this evening.
Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next is Resolution 33-22, Compensation County Administrative Officer for introduction only this evening.
Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next is Resolution 34-22, approval of application for the sale of development rights easement with the Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation for introduction only this evening.
Mr. Secretary, next item, please.
Next is Resolution 35-22 for the council's consideration of the approval of applications for the sale of agricultural easements for introduction only this evening.
All right, Mr. Secretary, is there any farther business to come before the county council?
There is no further business, Mr. Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. As is customary, anyone who's registered to speak online prior to the meeting is allowed 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Secretary, are there any speakers signed up this evening?
I believe we have one speaker, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Del Castro.
Yes, we have one speaker this evening. It is Michael Connolly. It looks like Mr. Connolly, he was on the meeting earlier and he is not on our meeting now. So he evidently did not stay on.
It was a little long meeting. Anything else before we all head back to our lives outside the council? Everybody good?
Yeah. And Mr. Conley is a volunteer for the White Marsh Volunteer Fire Company. He probably just wanted to share his thanks and thoughts on the rest.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Councilwoman Bevins. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Patoka.
To, in this public forum, wish Trey Mancini well. He was a great Baltimore Oriole, and he will be in Houston soon, but I think he was well loved here in Baltimore.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. All right, I think we're wrapped up. I hope Chairman Jones has a good